Ian.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tucker and Crowley Report, part of News Now and the Belmont Journal. I'm joined by Franklin Tucker, editor of the Belmontonian, and I am Mike Crowley. So Franklin, the week led off with town meeting.
Yep, two nights of town meeting.
All right, so what was noteworthy there?
Well, I think just that town meeting has changed so much since the last time we've met in live, which was back in November of 2019. Well, everybody got together for the first time this Monday, and we saw a changed legislative body. Since 2019, we have 100 new town meeting members. Which constitutes basically a third of the legislative body.
Turnover about a third.
Yeah, right. And if you think about it, 10% was elected in April. And and what we're also seeing is that we're seeing a changing demographic. We have our youngest town meeting member for a long time, an 18-year-old, and we're having a growing number of people of color who joined the ranks of the meeting. So that's very good, showing a lot more diversity. So at least, and we should also note that Fred Paulson was honored at the meeting. And Fred, if anybody knows, has been a long time stalwart at the meeting.
Franklin, how many years?
62 years. When dinosaurs still reigned in Belmont.
That's almost unimaginable.
It's such a long time ago. He was 26 or 27 when he was elected to the school board in 1959. When Eisenhower was president, and he just finished up his tenure, I believe, last year, and it was interesting. He talked about. I liked what he said. He said, "I enjoyed every town meeting and always hoped that it made a positive impact, even those times when my comments and ideas were cast aside." That's a person who enjoys the meetings as much as influencing the meeting itself.
So Franklin, after the honors were handed out, town meeting took up the Community Preservation Act funding projects, and
that was as always. It seems that each one of the projects that were presented by the Community Preservation Committee passed overwhelmingly, and I think something has to be told about that, and that is why do these projects, which they go everywhere between $31,000 for the Homer House window restoration, all the way up to the Grove Street basketball and baseball reconstruction, which is almost $1 million.
There was an attempt to introduce an amendment to that specific project.
And it was really interesting because it does ask a question of what makes up a project. Because what an amendment by Kate Bowen, she was doing this for a resident of Precinct 4, I believe, and what she was saying is that while the basketball court really needed to be renovated, it's falling apart. The baseball fields didn't, so she wanted to claw back that part of the project that was just for baseball, and that would have brought that whole that would have brought the price from like almost $1 million down to $250,000 in that area.
Now, Elizabeth Dion, select board member, as well as town council, both opined that town meeting could it has a different amount for the project, but town meeting could not change the scope of the project.
That's exactly right, and the scope of the project was that there were two parts of the Grove Street project, so it was under an umbrella. So this wasn't as if you had two separate projects that were being linked. It's actually one project, and what town council and what Elizabeth Dion, who is still the Community Preservation Committee chair, they both said, look, you absolutely have the right to lower the amount as long as that amount doesn't impact the project itself. And by attempting to take out the baseball section of it, you've basically just destroyed the project, in a clear way. And even if town meeting had approved that amendment, the committee and the select board would have immediately tabled the that amendment, the entire project, so they could try to salvage it in a different way.
Brandon Fitz, the Recreation Department director, and a number of other speakers just spoke to the lengthy vetting process that went into approval of this project. And
That's right. That's right. It goes from all the way from like the beginning when they were submitted from September all the way up till when they are when the committee gives their final approval, which is in the spring or late winter, and that whole process, which is really these any project has to go through so many hoops. You know, they are reviewed by a diverse committee. The committee asks a lot of very serious questions. They demand things from these projects, like in some ways, like the town field. You know, they had to raise a certain amount of private donations, and this was all set up by our former treasurer Floyd Carmen. This process really is a stickler. So when it comes to town meeting, it's been washed and dried pretty distinctly. You know.
So another issue that could be confusing to some folks, Franklin, town meeting approved the rink. Now, voters already approved a debt exclusion for the rink. And, a lot of people, this left a lot of people wondering, why does town meeting have to vote it again?
That's right. We saw this back in with the library. What happens is that while the voters will says, hey, you can use this money, the only people who can say the money is we can use the money is town meeting. They're the appropriating appropriating body. You have to go to them first.
So voters can vote an adjustment in their property taxes to pay for the new building, but town meeting has to approve the appropriation.
That's right. The amount that's going to be that the treasurer will go out to and bond and fund the money, basically.
All right.
Fund the project, I should say.
There was a citizens petition that came before town meeting involving parking. What can you tell us about that, Franklin?
Well, it was a amendment that has been going through. It's one of those amendments that has all the best interests in the town, and that is basically what. And I know we talked about this before, and that is cars that basically jut out into the sidewalk, and a lot of that has to do with people wanting to take their cars out of the street. Because they don't want to be ticketed for overnight parking, and what happens is that when they jet out into the street, people have to go into the street, and a lot of those are kids who are going to school, and because it's early in the morning. So she was saying we have to educate the people, but she also had a fine in
this
there.
This is G uniform.
That's right, from I think precinct 8. Yeah, so around the Winbrook school. And so, as Chief McIsaac said, great. We surely want to educate people. We don't want to be giving out tickets. We'd rather educate them. But there was a little bit of an issue in terms of the enforcement. Because this is a bylaw change, this would be separate from the traffic laws that we have in town. This would be like a special cutout for ticketing people. For this violation. The thing is that if you under this new bylaw, you ticket them, and instead of going to traffic court, you're going to municipal court. So, as Chief McIsaac said, he would hear it pretty loud and clear from the judges there. Why are you sending me these basically parking issues when they should be another reason? And so basically what he said is that what they're going to do and the bylaw passed. And this article passed, and what he said is that what we're going to do is we're really going to hype on the education process, which is like every 6 months we're just going to remind people not to park their cars where they are. But he said he would ticket only really habitual offenders with this new enforcement ticket, and then he would have to go before the judge. He doesn't want to use it a lot. He wants to use it very, very judiciously. But the interesting fact, and I did talk to Mark Paolo after the meeting,
Okay.
is that a number of people have said, "Why do we even have an overnight parking ban?" And they're talking about how arcane it is. Why do we have it? It's not like we're, as Mark Paolo said, if my neighbor is parking across the street overnight, why do I care?
You're reminding me, Franklin, of my first night in Belmont after we bought our house and moved in. I got ticketed because I was unaware that Belmont has an overnight parking ban.
That's right, and I think it will be coming up, and it might be at the next town meeting, and it won't be in the special town meeting in the fall or early winter, but it's most likely we're going to see maybe a change to our parking laws that will allow overnight parking on certain streets. Yeah,
and some people were arguing that this is important because in some cases there isn't enough driveway space to park to park the cars.
These houses, many of the houses were built, before the 1930s. So when we still had the Model T and Model A, they were very small.
Perhaps in some cases, horses and buggies.
Horses and buggies, yeah, you can tell. Dinosaurs too.
All right, so I think that's it for what's noteworthy about town meeting this week. Why don't we move on and talk about the budget?
That's right. The budgets are finally being finalized. The school committee has finalized their budget
after a lengthy process.
Very lengthy and it was basically looking at every line item. And what happened is that the schools knew they had to basically cut another $2.1 million. They did it. Then they said, well, let's look at what we cut, see if we can bring it back. And one item especially that so many people in town wanted to see come back was kindergarten aides.
Right.
And you can see why. Kindergartners really need a lot of FaceTime, and the teachers usually have over 20 kids, so you need those aides. And it's not just to bring them to the bathroom, like they said. It's really to help them learn. So and the school committee heard that, and they put those all those aides back into the budget. And they also did a request from the high school to have a teacher for that building, because they really needed an extra one, and that will be under the purview of of one of the assistant principals. So there's 8 plus 1, that's 9 people who are coming back. So some of these positions, the kindergarten aides, these had been slated for layoff. That's right, and so they're coming back.
Right.
So where did they cut? Well, they did a little bit of fudging. They looked at the supply line, and basically, teachers are going to get a couple of pencils and a piece of paper. Essentially, they've cut the budget that line item a lot.
They'll be raising athletic fees.
That's right, by $50. So that's going to hurt. It's going to. So if you have a three sport player, I know a lot of kids who do play 3 sports, but you're looking at $1,000, and so or right at $1,000. So that's going to be something that's going to affect people. But but what they also did is they said, look, basically, when they're every year, teachers retire, they move on to another position, or people from staff will go off. So we have a budget line that isn't being used, and that's basically how much money do you think we're going to have from these, not
from
filling
staff turnover?
Staff turnover. How much are we going to have? And basically they're just adding and adding. Yeah. So to basically balance the budget.
Now there was a lot of sensitivity about taking cuts to that to the savings from staff turnover, because as we've seen this year, the school department is running a deficit, and it's not entirely settled how that's going to be paid for.
That's right, because right now, this current budget, which has to be balanced by June 30, July 1st, because of the fiscal year, it's still a little under $300,000 in debt. So how are they going to?
I think it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So how is that going to be balanced?
Yeah.
And and where the school has already said that they're going to go before the warrant committee and ask for funding, which the warrant committee can provide them.
They have an emergency fund that's typically used for
Everything in town,
snow removal and,
right.
and a variety of other things. We had less snow removal this year,
so there's some money in there.
All right, and but there were a number of cuts. Now they sort of wrapped up the budget, leaving a number of positions that school committee members considered desirable in a category called the parking lot for future discussion. Although how those might be added back.
I mean, if you look how they, and I hate to use the word fudge, but that's basically what they did. They went into some certain line items and they said, "Oh, we can put a little bit more in there." If they're having a hard time balancing budget, doing all these things and then going, to the warrant committee, there's not a lot of money out there. There's not a pot of gold. And one of the meetings. One of the two meetings that the school committee had, they had our state senator, our state rep, basically they were saying, is there some money out there? And unfortunately, they said, there's not. You're not going to see much. If it does come, it's not going to solve the problems within the school budget.
So the select board also, Franklin, they have not voted the town budget yet.
They're taking their time because there's some issues of fringe benefits and where the fringe benefits go, and that was one of the it's still a little bit they just wanted to they were going to do it vote on the budget on Wednesday, but they decided we have some time, make sure talk to the town council, talk to the people who the town treasurer, and just find out exactly, just pin down everything, make sure all the numbers are correct.
So I think we're not expecting any major changes.
No, none really.
But Franklin, I will say that Kathy Cohane, who's on the library board of trustees, has told me that the town administrator did agree to fund a half-year position for a new deputy library.
Yeah, that's right. Assistant library director will be coming forward, but they've found the funds, but what they really needed to negotiate with even though they have the control of their own budget, they really need to talk to the town because fringe benefits.
So they have been talking for some months,
and it has been approved.
It's finally been resolved with a half-year position, which transitions to the following year. They'd have
to find the funds.
Find funds because it'll be a full year position.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So shifting gears, this is also in some respects a money issue, but an update on the new middle and high school building, which we actually had at town meeting.
It was a report at town meeting. Yes.
What can you tell us?
Well, Bill Wallo came. He's the head of the building committee, and he had really good news. He said the building is going to be it's going to be online and ready for September opening. So we're going to have two schools, and he announced some really neat things about how the project has been going forward, how the fields are going to be created, and they already named the baseball field the Brendan Grant Memorial Field, which is great.
Actually, the school committee approved that last year.
Well, that's true. But he showed where the new monument's going to be.
Credit for it.
Yeah, that's good. But what he did also say is that the amount of money that he's always been touting that town residents were going to pay, which was about $212 million, in that range. He said, well, there's been a change, and that change had to do with their partnership with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and they're giving out like $84 million to the town. That's why we're partnering with them.
So the state dropped the grant.
Yeah, they reduced
the grant amount by about $1 million.
A little bit more, like $1.3 million, because they looked at our what we were getting in terms of what we're basically paying for, and they said maybe there's a few things that you could have paid for yourself, so we're not going to pay for it. So they basically said we're going to reduce your amount that we're going to give you by about $1.3 million.
So of a roughly $295 million project, the town will be on the hook for
Another million.
about $213 million, which is about $1 million more than we expected when the project was.
Yeah, and that's something that the school that the building committee had told the town and the schools. So it's not something that's a surprise. I think it's the first time that a lot of people now know that this is going to be a little bit more. Yeah, but if you look at the entire process, it's like you said, we're looking at a $295 million building, and $1.1 million, it's less than 1%. So if you look at a project like this, there are projects right now. If you look at Stoneham High School, they're looking at $20 million. And that has to do with just bids that are just outrageous. So think of it. I think we're pretty lucky, especially when we've gone through a pandemic. And all the inflationary issues that building construction has seen. We should see ourselves as lucky.
We're basically within budget.
That's right.
And so, Franklin, let's close that out and move on to some announcements about upcoming things that people may be interested in.
Sure. It's what we have Monday is a town meeting. And that's the last night of town meeting.
We resume segment A of town meeting.
Let's hope we only have 3 nights. Okay. I know that there's some people who think it's going to go 4 nights, but I don't. I think we're gonna stay there till after midnight because it's some citizens petitions, and it's not much. So tune in. Let's see what happens.
We'll see what happens there. And then there's a water and sewer rates public forum.
That's right. We talked about this earlier. It's the forum for the water and sewer rates,
which are going up.
We should say, this is a proposal that was done by a consultant, and the consultant said, "Look, you're in the same boat as everyone else. Inflationary pressures, just the amount of reconstruction you have to do with your pipes and stuff like that." And he said, and because your reserve fund, which the returned earnings was retained earnings is what allowed the town to say we're not going to increase the rates. So it was basically DPW who said we're not going to increase rates, and the reason why they didn't want to increase rates is because Belmont had some of the highest rates in the region. So they said, let's bring that down. Yeah, man, let's bring that down. Let's bring that into the middle. But he said that every town is going to go through this. And he said, so they did the study, and the study said basically a 4% increase annually for the next 5 years. Sewer rates will go up 8% annually for the first 2 years, and 3 years after that will be 4% a year. But the consultant also said that water is pretty elastic when it comes to demand, supply and demand. So people will always have water, and it's not going to be a lot of money. It won't be a big increase in money on the average rate. About 1,500 gallons of water that a regular that a single family home uses. You're looking at maybe $28, a $28 increase.
That's a year?
A year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if people are looking for more information about that or want to offer comments about the rate increases, the public forum is on May 10th and 7:00.
That's right. It's around that time.
Okay. So people can find out about that on the town website.
That's right. And we have one last thing that we should highlight, and that is our annual the Performing Arts Company of the Belmont High School are performing their annual one acts, and that's what exactly what they are. One act plays, produced and directed by seniors, and acted by the lowerclassmen, and they're always fun. They're always really quick, and a lot of great acting, a lot of things. My son did 4 years, one acts, and it was great. You know, they're some of them are really cute. Some of them are more dramatic, but they're all just digestible within 2 hours. So you get, yeah, and there's only 5 this year. Usually there's 6 or 7 or even 8. This year we're only going to have 5, and they're going to be a little longer. But as I talked to the people who are producing this, it looks really good.
All right. Well, something.
And that's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the high school.
Okay, so something to look forward to. And that's next week. All right, thanks, Franklin. And you can see more of Franklin's reporting at belmontonian.com. Be sure to watch us next time, and we will see you then.